Yo, what's up, Duuuval Nation? This is Duuuval against y'all with your host Blindside. And as you see today, all right. I got a guest with me. You can find him at Jax Commish on Twitter. Today we're just gonna break down our top 5 players at different Jaguars positions of all time. And then at the end, and then of course we're gonna discuss a little bit and see how that goes. So if you like this, make sure to like and subscribe. Check out our website. That's toysandtowels.com. And then check out our sister network at the CFB Nation YouTube. And then if you'd like to interact with us more, make sure to check out our Garo chat. We'll have more with that in a moment. So how you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm glad to be on Toilets Titles. I'm glad to be here with you talking Jags. It's been a while since I can knock the rust off since last year, so I'm ready to roll.
All right, man. Tell the peoples a little bit about yourself, man, if they're not already familiar.
Yeah, so I mean, I've been on Twitter quite a bit now as Jax Commish. I used to do a few podcasts back in the day with Hammercast Network, and now I've kind of be a freelancer almost. I've joined Toilets Titles, some of their leagues that they're in, and been liking a lot that they do. So I'm glad to get on with you today here, and I'm just going to continue doing what I do, talking about Jags, talking about fantasy, and hopefully this year's a very successful one for my Jaguars.
Yeah, man. I mean, I feel like we got a score going. We can go pretty far with it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's start with the breakdowns. I'm gonna let you go first with this. Let's start with your quarterbacks. Who's your top 5 quarterbacks in Jags history?
So pretty easy. I mean, most of us know number 1 is sitting Mark Brunell. The guy set every record in Jaguars history currently. But that leads me to my number 2 guy, Trevor Lawrence. I don't see him staying at number 1 for much longer. Mark Brunell. I know a lot of people like David Garrard up there in Leftwich, but I feel that what Trevor Lawrence is about to do and become is going to set him apart from all the rest. Next, you got David Garrard. This one is kind of personal to me. I used to wear back in the day in that 2007. I actually made a sweatshirt when Leftwich was still there and he was struggling a little. I wore a sweatshirt that said Garrard for president. I'd wear that thing in every single game until finally it happened. He took over in 2007 and kind of led us decently. You know, after that, it kind of fell apart a little bit, but he was a great dual threat quarterback for us. Next, I've got the man, the myth, the legend, Blake Bortles himself, the boat. The guy, what he did, you know, people forget that in that second year, you know, he threw for 4,428 yards and 35 touchdowns. I mean, you've got people talking about Trevor Lawrence's second year and what he did, and it was only 25 touchdowns in about the same amount of yards. So Bortles threw for 10 more touchdowns, and he really did it on the back of a okay, suspect, little bit wide receiving core. So to me, what he did in his short period of time here sets him kind of a step above the rest than the other quarterbacks. And then lastly, in my 5th, if we're going top 5, will be Byron Leftwich, the 2-foot Leftwich himself. I like the grit he had coming out of college. If you remember in that college game, he broke his ankle or hurt his ankle. They had the offensive line carrying him up to the line. And ever since we drafted him, ever since I saw that game, I really like what he brought to the field itself. He wasn't much of a rusher, but he still had 8 touchdowns rushing for us over his seasons and tenure here. So Leftwich would kind of round all that out at number 5 for me.
I had the exact same list. Like for real, I was like, I feel like that's most of us. The only thing I feel like I would add too is with Garrard. I feel like almost Jaguars as an organization, I feel like we failed him a little bit more. Like I feel like if we get him more help, I feel like he's going to be looked at as the top 2, like 100%. Yeah. But I mean, other than that, like I said, I was like, this is exactly like everything else I agree with. I mean, I do even going back. I mean, I was a kid, but I still remember watching like the Leftwich versus Garrard game in their college careers. Like, I mean, and then they're both backup quarterbacks for us.
Yeah.
I thought that was always cool. But yeah, I mean, like basically everything you say, I 100% agree with. I mean, I think Trevor's going to take it from Brunell pretty soon. And then it's just going to be.
And like you said with Garrard, you know, Garrard still has like career, single game, season, passer rating. He was very efficient in what he did. And like I said, with the dual threat, he was able to rush a bunch. So, and he had that defense that backed him a little bit, but he kind of went through some bad times after 2007. Just our team wasn't that great. So he really just struggled himself. because of that. He really didn't have too much to help him out, honestly. I mean, maybe
Yeah, exactly.
he had a pretty poor team around him from that 2008 on. I think he had a losing record. It wasn't very spectacular after that. So a lot of times people like to place blame on the quarterback because they're the leader of the team, and he kind of was the scapegoat for those seasons.
I mean, yeah, really, because really the only other play, like big moment that I remember was 2010 with the Hail Mary to Mike Thomas, the knockdown thing. That's like the 2-3 plays everyone remembers Gerard for now.
Yes.
But that was he will always be. I always remember that game because I was at that game, and so it's always like in my memory that play.
Yeah.
Best play of Mike Thompson's career too.
Yeah.
All right, so next, let's go with our running back groups. I mean, I feel like the top two are pretty much we're gonna have the same, but let's see how we're going with that.
Yeah, I don't see how you're gonna get away from the number one being Freddie T. Guy's gonna be a Hall of Famer in a matter of time. He's 17th in the league in rushing yards at 11,271. What he did is his rookie year on. I mean, his rookie season, he had 1,223 yards and 14 touchdowns, and then went on to have 7 1,000+ seasons. So to me, what's crazy about that, the 7 1,000 yard, he was in a time when running backs were prevalent everywhere in the NFL.
Yeah.
You got a lot of good running backs. And even though he had those 7 1,000 yard seasons, he only made the Pro Bowl one time during his whole tenure here. So it's also small market stuff. I feel like we get gypped a lot with being the Jaguars and during our times of maybe not such successful seasons of getting kind of cut out of Pro Bowls or all pro selections. So it was shocking when I was looking some of that stuff up that he only made 1 Pro Bowl. But Freddie T to me is hands down the number 1 running back for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I feel like if he was in 2 years later, I feel like he'd have 3 more Pro Bowls. I think just his prime with LT and everything, it just took everything from him.
A lot of good players during that time, and that was when they had that was the true cowbell running back systems that most NFL teams were running. Next, which kind of complimented him pretty well, was MJD, one of my favorite players of all time. I used to work at Chili's, close to a pretty predominant neighborhood, and MJD lived there, and he'd come to Chili's all the time, and I would see him quite a bit. I got a few autographs of him, pictures with him. So he's just a great guy. Second rounder, when I was going through a lot of these lists, a lot of our best players are second round picks, which is kind of funny to me. We might have flopped on those first round picks, but second rounders, we really knocked them out of the park. His rookie year, he had 941 yards and 5.7 yards per carry and 13 touchdowns. But what's crazy about that is he did that all while not starting. Remember, Freddie T was the lead back.
Yeah, he was
backing to him. Something that I liked about him the most, though, was his return game. You don't picture a little bowling ball to be one of the best return men in the game, but that guy, I mean, when we needed it most, he would get us the yardage needed to win.
I think a lot of people actually forgot about how he started out in the kickoff game and then was getting more and more carries rushing.
He was unbelievable, and it sticks in my head how many times I chanted Drew out loud, MJD. The guy did
Pocket Hercules.
Things. Yeah, Pocket Hercules for sure. So, and in 2011, he led the league with 1,606 yards. So, for me, he's number 2 easily on our list of Jacksonville Jaguar running backs.
Yeah, I'll say my top 2 is still the same or exactly the same. I feel like the only issue what hurt us with the Maurice Jones-Drew was those last 3-4 years we just ran him to the ground.
Yeah,
and I was like, he could have had a longer career if we hadn't that was all we had for a few years there.
Yeah, no, literally, I have written down here, he only had 1 winning season in his entire career. He was with us for quite some time, and then he went on to be a Raider, but he just never was on a good team. He was it. He was everything, even in that 2011. I mean, God, we were terrible that year, and he still mustered up 16, led the league in it. So he just never really got a good break and had a good, I don't know, just never really fit right for that whole offense for those years that he was with us. Unfortunately, it was, towards the later end of his career. I don't know if you remember, but he got hurt, and then He punched somebody at a outside of a famous. It's called the Conch House.
Oh yeah.
And it kind of fell apart. The city kind of turned on him a little bit because of it, because he sucker punched someone and it was caught on film, and then they cut him shortly after that. I felt kind of bad how it all ended here, but I'll always have a place in my heart for MJD. He still is a huge part of the fantasy community, so I like a lot of things that he talks about. He's always pumping the Jags, so I respect that.
Exactly.
Now, here's where it gets a little crazy to me, because the 3, 4, 5 spot, I've got 4 guys, and I know it's only 3 spots.
Yeah, you're good. Let's see what
I don't even know what order you're going to put these in, but I've just got a little bit of each one. But I've got James Stewart, James Robinson, Leonard Fournette, and then Travis Etienne with his last season. So it's kind of, to me, they're all pretty close to each other, and they've done some things in the Jaguars' history to get them into that top 5. For example, James Stewart, he's 3rd in yards, 3rd in TDs, and he does have that 5 touchdown game.
That's a hit.
People don't forget. So for me, he's kind of in that 3rd. So I just have him written there. You can flip these guys around. James Robinson, I know it fell apart last year and things went awry, but you got to remember, this guy was an undrafted free agent, and he set the record for undrafted free agent in 1,000 yards, 344 receptions, or receiving yards, and 60 receptions with 10 TDs. I mean, that's unbelievable for an undrafted free agent to do, and he did it on a team that won 1 or 2 games that year. So to do that with that team in 2020 is just amazing to me. Leonard Fournette, 2 1,000-yard seasons. It was funny. I was going back looking at some of the things in that 2019 season, in his later 1,000-yard season, he had 76 receptions, which that's not really Lenny's.
Exactly. And remember, that was his whole thing coming out, that he can't catch.
Right. And he went with 76. I mean, that's crazy. That's crazy. That's like what Kamara was doing, Austin Eckler's doing now. Like, that's unbelievable for a big guy.
CMC, it was almost CMC levels, and everyone's just like, what?
Yeah, so he didn't have any touchdowns receiving that year, but he did have 76 receptions, so it's kind of funny. And then, of course, Travis Etienne, he had 1,100 yards last year, 316 receiving yards, 45 receptions, and 5 touchdowns. Again, no receiving touchdowns with all those receptions that he had. So I think that will get an uptick. And we all know what happened his first season. He blew out his foot right away. So I think we can really see him kind of jump up this totem pole of running backs in the Jaguar history pretty quick. I mean, he'll get close to MJD in the next few years, no problem, especially with Trevor leading the charge.
Yeah, I could see it. The only thing I feel like might slow down Etienne is with his touchdown numbers. I feel like they might start dipping a little bit, just with like Tank basically drafting this year and everything.
Yeah, they were to start with. Yeah, you're right.
Exactly. So I think that's a lot of people like, oh, he only had 20 touchdowns in 4 years now or whatever.
Yeah. Sure.
So like my top 2 are James Taylor and MJD, and then I go Leonard Fournette 3, because I feel like, I mean, that whole 2007 run, it's almost legendary. Just like we're running it down your throat. You're not stopping him.
Right. Yeah, to draft him there and just literally do what you want to do, just impose your will on everyone. I mean, he would get if you needed a first down, he was getting the first down. Like
exactly.
A little, but he's going to run you over. It was a beautiful season, beautiful run for him.
Like I remember the Pittsburgh game when it was like a 16-play drive and every play was a run. They could stop it all the way down the field. So I mean, like you have a guy like that. I mean, I do feel like it did end bad with the whole Tom Coughlin situation, and so I feel like a lot of people probably don't put him up as 3 just because of all that and he left and then whatever. But then I got James Stewart.
Yeah, he was unbelievable at his time. He never hit 1,000 yards, but he got close a few times, and he led the league, or led the team in rushing for quite a few. I think 3 years that he was there. So I mean, I definitely get him up there pretty quick. We're young. And a lot of these guys, they don't have to do too much to get in our top.
Exactly. 5. And then like we've talked, like you hinted at before, with our first round drafting being so bad, history wise, it's like some of these guys, like on other teams, it'd be like 20, but because of everybody else, they were up higher. And then my fifth is okay. So James Robinson, I put in there, but it was only like a year and a half.
Yeah, it wasn't much.
I got knocked a little bit, which again, part of that was the ETN pick. So like I understand it. So I don't have him at like 6. But my fifth is because part of with the effect he had on the team too, even though he didn't get as many carries, is Greg Jones.
Greg Jones, baby, that's a beast.
Yeah, everybody remember Greg Jones, man. You couldn't stop that man, bro.
You got his autograph right there, baby.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, he's a monster. You know what he could do. That's a dangerous man. There's no person my boys always talked about. There's no person you want to see in a back alley. Greg Jones.
Isn't Greg Jones? No, ain't nobody was. I mean, he'd be hitting every Steeler. Like during the steel curtain, even he was hitting everybody, and they were terrified of him. Like,
oh yeah, that guy was. I swear the biggest arms you ever seen for a running back. That guy was a freak.
I mean, and everyone forgets he got hurt. If he hadn't got hurt, there's probably no MJD because he had to move to fullback.
Yep. But he was a good fullback too, though.
That's what I'm saying. It's like I got to give him over just because, I mean, he had the longevity. He may not have the yards Robinson had, but he played longer. I feel like it had a bigger effect on our running game than he did, than our Robinson did.
Yeah, I like that. I kind of slipped my mind because you're right.
Exactly.
Yardages, and he didn't stack up the stats, but he did some things that aren't in the stat book. He would level people.
Oh man, but yeah, so that's my top 5. I mean, I feel like we kind of have similar players on both of them. But I think it's just more of just like the order.
Yeah.
But overall, I feel like both lists you can make a good argument for either list. I feel like.
Yeah, definitely.
So next, let's go to the receivers. Again, I feel like this is an easy top 2, and then that's when we start getting into it. So I mean, like, let's see what your top 5 are after the top 2. I mean,
top, well, it's funny if I read this to you, if Jimmy Smith, obviously number 1, but he was drafted in 91 in Dallas. He had he was not very good. Had an appendectomy surgery, which caused an infection. Then cut the next year. Didn't even play in the NFL for a year. Joins the Jags. Then has 288 yards his first year. I'm like, this guy's 5 years almost into the league and is done.
Yeah, he's done.
Then 7 straight 1,000-yard seasons. So, it's a good story. He's had his ups and downs. Now he's supposed to be, on the even keel. But I mean, what the guy did, 1,000 yards in nine times in a season. In 99, he had 1,636 on 116 receptions. And this wasn't in a time when, nowadays in the NFL, like that's
like an average.
Yeah. It's like, okay, you're top 5 maybe in the NFL with that. But back then to have those kind of numbers is just extraordinary. So, 5 straight Pro Bowls, the guy literally is a true story to be told, going from that, what I explained in the beginning, to now all that. He might not make it into the Pro Bowl the Hall of Fame because of his off-field issues during the time of his tenure in the NFL, but I would love to see him get in. He was just dynamic,
That's exactly what I was about to ask you. I was like, who do you think would be in the Hall of Fame first, him or Fred Taylor?
Fred Taylor. Fred Taylor's getting in. I wholeheartedly believe that he'll be in before, like I said, Jimmy Smith, unfortunately, he has better numbers, but
yeah, true.
It's just the off-field issues. He had so many of them. Even in that last, he would have had 8 straight seasons of 1,000 yards, but he got cut short because of suspension. He was well on his way to make it another one, but he just kind of fell apart from there, and he just never could get his head on straight. And NFL, I mean, nowadays you can do whatever you want, I guess, but back then, you couldn't do those things. So
yeah, because they were trying to get out of the whole 90s, like all the Cowboys stuff that was happening there, so they were trying to crack down on everybody.
Yes, exactly. So unfortunately, I think he's going to have a much harder battle to get into the Hall of Fame than Freddie will. Number 2, obviously the counterpart to Jimmy Smith was Keenan McCardell, Thunder and Lightning. Yeah, he signed in 96, and that's when, Jimmy Smith started taking off as well. And in that first season, he had 85 receptions, 1,200 yards, only 3 touchdowns, but he was the go-to guy. He gets you that first down every time. He had 1,100 yards or more in 4 out of the 6 seasons. And then he's the second in Jags history with receptions, yards, and touchdowns. So to me, it's an easy number 2. And unfortunately, because we are a young team and we don't have a lot of great wide receivers, the list for me is kind of shady. So my next guy, and this is one of my all-time favorite Jags, is AR-15, Allen Robinson.
Yep. Same here.
Second rounder again. We talk about these second rounders. He's 2015 in Pro Bowl, but he had 1,400 yards and 14 touchdowns. And everybody, thought he was going to be the next great thing. He was going to be the guy. And then he followed it up with a 900-yard season, which really kind of sucked a little. He had Blake Bortles throwing to him, which kind of hindered it. The offense was a little shaky. But then in 2017, and people forget about this, which makes, about that 2017 such a great season on top of everything, is very first throw to Allen Robinson, week 1.
He went down.
Blows his ACL out. So now we have to go into that whole 2017 season, how much we did, what we did without our number 1 receiver. It just makes that season so much better when you think about that. It sucks to think about it, but
yeah.
If we had him the whole time, God, we would have been dangerous. So to me, Allen Robinson, although he only had a short tenure here in Jacksonville, it was something that was, very promising, during that 2015 season. The 1,400 yards, 14 touchdowns, led the league. Next up, like I said, there hasn't been much, since 2005 when Jimmy Smith had his last 1,000-yard season. Since then, there's only been 4 1,000-yard receivers. Can you name those 4? I told you Allen Robinson's one of them.
Yes, it's A-Rob, Kirk, Chart, and Hernsey, right?
Hearns, yeah, that's a tough one. Hearns is a tough one.
That is, I'll say.
Yeah, so for me, that's where I put this number 4. Christian Kirk is actually my guy coming in at number 4 because he did have that 1,000-yard receiving season in his first year here as a Jaguar. So it like we said, it's not hard to jump up to top 5. Especially when you're putting up numbers like that. He had 84 receptions and 8 touchdowns. So it's not like he's not catching touchdowns. He's doing pretty solid in that. Now, where I like this is, we talked about number 1 and number 2, Jimmy Smith and Keenan Cardell. Well, I'm going number 5. Yeah. It's now Christian Kirk and Calvin Ridley. I really think it's the second coming of Thunder and Lightning combo. You've got Calvin Ridley, and everyone's gonna be a hater and think, okay, he hasn't played in 2+ years, but when he did last play, the guy was unbelievable. He had like 15
with a broken foot too.
Yeah. So and what he said, and it kind of gives me chills every time I read that. I wrote it down here. What if I got faster? What if I got stronger? Obviously, I got wiser. Why can't I be better? If you went and looked at, he wrote a really, really good piece, a letter basically to fans and to everybody, telling his story. And his story is crazy. He's a foster child, had to go through a lot of hard things. And the whole issue with Atlanta and them, basically, he became a pill popper because he had to stop the pain.
Yeah.
They kept forcing it on him. He's like, I think something's wrong with my foot. And they just kept going and kept doing it to him. And, obviously it's him too. He's taking the stuff, but they were forcing him out on that field. And then he ended up breaking his foot and kind of falling back. And then he kind of went into just some depression with pills and some other things. And he needed a break. So he took like a retirement. And that's the kind of when, during that retirement period is when the whole gambling, which is crazy. He gets a whole year. Benching, and these guys that just got it now are getting like 6 games, some 2 games.
Exactly. I'm like, they're getting a year or like the no name or like the no disrespect, but like not the big stars.
Right.
And I was like, really? After really? Okay.
Yeah, and then still even with Jameson Williams for the Lions, he's a big name, gets 6th. How does I don't understand and then the other things, you start comparing them to Watson's got 20.
Okay, I was thinking about bringing that up. It's like
and this guy's not even getting, he got 11 games and Calvin Ridley's getting 16. So some bad breaks, but like he said, and he writes this whole thing out. He's like, I've rested. I've gotten past my demons and done this. And like he says, like, what if I've gotten stronger? I've gotten faster. And he has. He's training. You see him out there. He's unbelievable.
Like he's fast. He's faster than everybody else. Even if everyone's like, this is crazy.
Yeah. So to me, I think he clocks in as my number 5 without even seeing anything yet with the Jaguar uniform on. I really think he can come back in his career. And, you know, what Doug Peterson does is he's a player's coach. You know, he brought out the best in Evan Ingram. He's brought out the best of quite a few people. And I really think he's going to do the same thing with Calvin Ridley. So I like that Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley combo, like I said, of the second coming of Thunder and Lightning.
Okay, so your last two, you have Kirk and Ridley at this tie for 5th?
No, Kirk.
Kirk is 4?
Kirk is 4. Ridley is 5.
Ridley is 5. Okay.
And I'm cutting guys out I know that have been, but we really just, I mean, to me, there just hasn't been much. You know, you could talk DJ Chark, you could talk Hearns, and you got Reggie Williams, you got
Williams, and you got Cecil Shorts in there a little bit.
Cecil, salute my shorts for sure, but I think these two are about to show the world that they're the new top 5 in Jags history.
So like my top 3 is the same. So like I agree with your points about like I think Ridley and Kirk are going to jump into at minimum 2 and 3.
Yeah.
If they do with it. But so like as of now though, I still have Smith as 1, I still have McCardo as 2. I agree with you about A-Rob as 3. I personally have Alan Hearns as 4, just some of the stuff he did, like some of the beating he took. Like I'm not sure if you remember, but the Chargers game where he tore his hamstring and crawled off the field to save a time.
Yeah, man. I remember and he had I think a concussion one game that was rough. I mean, he go across the middle. He's not afraid to be hit, that's for sure.
Like I always remember, like he's crawling up. That play put him in for me. I was like, man, you crawl to save a timeout, just help your team with this win. Like it was crazy. And then I have Kirk right behind him though at 5.
All right, nice.
So I feel like Kirk after this year, I think Kirk's going to jump him at least, and Ridley's going to jump both of them most likely if he plays. I mean, like he said, he's like with me and Trevor Lawrence can get at least 1,400. Does that? Their Hearns is falling out, which sucks, but I just feel like for now, just of what you've done, what he's done in the past of 1 year versus several years, I got to put Kirk slightly behind him, even though I feel like Kirk was a better receiver last year than Hearns has been.
Yeah.
But I mean,
it was worth every penny that we paid. I mean, I honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I was a doubter of Kirk for sure when we paid for him, and we were talking. He's paid like top 5, top 10 paid receiver.
He's like 11 now. He fell hard too.
Yeah, now, but I was concerned.
Yeah, like I agree. I was the same. I was like, why are we giving?
We have thrown a lot of money out before, and it started to raise some flags for me. And Zay Jones, same thing. I was not a believer, and we threw out the money, but now I'm a full believer in both of them. I absolutely love what they've done. I think they complement each other real well, and putting a true number 1 wide receiver with those two. I mean, we're dangerous, man.
Facts. Like me personally, I believe more in Kirk than I did in Zay Jones. I was afraid we were going to end up cutting Zay Jones.
Oh, God,
during the season, I was like, did we give him that much money?
A lot.
I mean, he proved us all wrong. It just, I mean, they're still talking about it. It's like, oh, I was reading some article the other day, and they were talking about, well, Jaguars up now. That's why Tyreek Hill's have to make it 30 plus, or everybody else. Like, I mean, that's the market. It's
wide receiver. You got to get them.
I mean, I was like, we weren't drafting him, so might as well go sign him. So for the last, I feel like our tight end group we could do, but I feel like our tight ends we haven't really had. We've had like 3 good tight ends.
Yeah. Well, let's just hear what you got for tight end.
All right. So tight end, I went. This is a little hot take. I went Mercedes Lewis first.
Oh, that's my first. That's what I got.
Then I went Kyle Brady, and then I went Evan Ingram. Ingram is right behind him.
That's so funny. I can't see it, but that's exactly what I have. Mercedes Lewis, Kyle Brady, Evan Ingram. Mercedes Lewis, just the guy's an Iron Man. Still in the league.
He's still league. Yeah, he's still free agent too. So I'm on Mercedes. Come back home.
Yeah, Rodgers is going to have a say in that. He wants some.
100%.
We'll see. Kyle Brady, he was same thing. A really good blocking tight end, just a beast of a man. And then Evan Ingram sets the franchise record in year 1. So I like where the sky's the limit on him. So I think he's not done yet.
Yeah, I feel like we need to do whatever we can. I feel like that contract needs to get signed, and then we can figure that out. Because I mean, I feel like Ingram hadn't really done that much in New York, so he didn't really do anything to got in Doug Pearson's system.
Yeah, yeah. Well, other than his rookie year, he kind of just fell off. So
yeah, I mean, he had that one Pro Bowl year when he had like 2 touchdowns, which still can't believe that happened. All right, so I just want to go before we go into defense. I just want to say, if you like this content and everything else, make sure to check out our Patreon. We have several different levels for whatever you're trying to, whatever you can afford. Starting at $1.50, going all the way up to $20. The $1.50 amount has like you can get into our Gilded chat and our Frankenstein Listener League. $3 you get waiver wire episodes. $5 you get entered for some free merch. I mean, everyone likes free stuff, right? There we go. For $7.50 has one-on-one draft advice. So if you have a question about who should I draft my fantasy league, you get for that one. And then our $10 one has free entry into our Frankenstein League, which is normally $25. But so you're saving $15, and you're part of this, right?
Yeah. So the Frankenstein League is unbelievable. I don't usually step out of my comfort zone of leagues, but this league was it's absolutely insane. It's basically like build your own monster kind of thing. Like when you beat someone, you take a player from them kind of deal. You get these monster cards that do things. I've never been like more excited. I did pretty good last year, so I was in it.
Exactly.
You know, it was intense the whole time. I fell apart towards the end, but it really is amazing, that league, what they've done and all the time they put into it, and you know the skill that you need to actually win and do good in it. Same thing with that Gilded chat that he's talking about. The Gilded chat's a very good resource. It's got tons of different tabs that you can click on, talking about anything. I mean, Frankenstein League, if you want to talk about Dynasty, Debbie, everything. It's got everything in that Gilded chat. So it's a good way to boost your knowledge on fantasy football all around.
And yeah, we're active in all times. So it's not like you join it and then there's no one talks for 4 weeks or whatever. So always make sure you're always staying in touch.
Yeah, it goes
all times of day too. All right, and then the last one is for the $20, and it has you can get one-on-one roster analysis and then 30-minute episode breaking down your league in particular's draft, and like, oh, so this guy did good, this guy did bad. So I mean, that's always good. So like, if you're kind of new to fantasy, here's a little helpful for like, oh yeah, you have a good chance, or yeah, this may not be the year for you type situation. So I mean, that's all. So make sure to check all those out. All right, so if we get through that, let's go to our all-time defense. So let's start with the D line.
Perfect. So for me, only because I've kind of, so I moved to Jacksonville in 2001. So when I started covering, actually being a fan, I actually worked for them my first few years here. My first 2 years here, 2001, 2002, I was a season ticket kind of salesperson. And then I'm like, what am I doing? I need to be watching these games. So I became a season ticket holder after that, and then been one ever since. So 20 plus years now of season ticket holder. But for me, my two favorite defensive linemen, my favorite defensive linemen start at the top, and that's John Henderson and Marcus Stroud. The two twin towers, they were physical forces to be reckoned with, 6'7", 335, 6'6", 310, combined for 592 tackles, 51 sacks. From 02 to 07, they led defenses in rushing yards allowed at like under 4 rushing yards allowed per game. That's insane, like for the season. So to me, they were the anchors to a fantastic defensive front that happened many years in a row. It wasn't just like a flash in the pan one year that they guys did. They did have a little bit of a falling out towards the end of their tenure here, but to me, nothing says Jaguars more than watching John Henderson get slapped in the face.
Yep.
Blasted on the screens before everything. Even came on the screen before the playoff games. Nothing says Jaguar Nation more than that, and everyone knows that. When they see that, they know exactly who that guy is. So for me, that's why he's number 1. Same thing, Stroud number 2. And then I've got the mayor of Saxonville himself, Calais Campbell, as my number 3. He's in the number 3 in sacks for Jaguars with just 3 years under his belt. So
Yeah.
he was able to do on that 2017 defense as a leader, not only as a leader inside the locker room, but a leader outside in the city of Jacksonville. If you remember, he, I think it was either 17 or 18, he was the NFL Man of the Year. You know how they do like community.
What year was that?
Man,
it was his last year, so it was 19.
19 then, yeah.
It was 19 because last year because he got traded right after.
Yep. So what he's able to do there, I like to factor in everything with that. Calais was, the most approachable guy. He would do all the shows every time. He would sit there and sign autographs forever. Like, to me, that's big, and not only that, but then still be the best leader in the locker room. And you could tell he was a leader. So getting number 3 in sacks in 3 years and doing all of that, I think gets him up there as number 3. Then number 4, Tony Brackens. The guy was an absolute monster for us. Again, a second rounder in 96. He led us to helped do a few playoff runs there. So that's my number 4. And I actually don't even have a number 5. I was going to put in, one of these young guys now, but I still have to see some stuff first from Walker or Josh Allen before I do any of that. I like Josh Allen a lot, but I still think, he's still got some work to do. I don't like that he was kind of, obviously it's involuntary,
the mini camps. Yeah.
But I just don't like it. That's not a, you want the guy that's there talking up the team from day one on. And he says he's going to be the, he'll be there for the rest of it and everything, but it just puts a little red flag for me. So.
Yeah, like I get that. I mean, I was glad that he showed up to that he didn't try to get excused from the minicamp part too.
Yeah.
So I was glad he was able to interact with some people, because I mean, I've had the same issue. I feel like one of his biggest things is he's not, as of now, I don't feel like he's one of those guys that's elite enough to deal with double teams.
Yeah, not yet.
No, because I feel like that's part of it, just why Sack's been so down, because the other side's been everyone goes over that, and he's not at that level yet. I mean, now during the end of last year with the playoffs and the after Titans game, I feel like he was coming like, okay, I got this type situation, but I still feel like he still, like you said, has room to grow.
Yes.
So my top 5 has similar players. There's ranked a little different. All right, so now my number 1 is John Henderson. Like you said, I mean, he is. When someone says Jaguars football, that is him. That's everything he's done. My number 2 is Tony Brackens. I feel like a lot of people don't remember Tony Brackens, but like his pass rushing, I feel like he was our pass rusher for a good few years there. I feel like he's just become a legend. I mean, he kind of retired off and did his little branch out there. So I mean, I feel like that's a lot of. I feel like that's retiring sunset. That's what he's trying to do. And then 3, I have Calais, like you. So I mean, with the mayor of Jacksonville, I mean, we almost brought him back this offseason.
I know when he was up there.
And Atlanta offered him more, and I was like, I'm on the line. I was like, yeah, Atlanta, but
what you gonna do there? What you gonna do?
Exactly. It's like Atlanta got some guys. It was like their offense isn't ready for it.
Yeah.
It's gonna be like 2007 again. You're gonna be or 2017 putting up all those. You're gonna have to stop every play. I feel like it would have been a cool story for him to get his 100th sack back in Jacksonville. But
so great if you're a guy. I was dying when he went to Atlanta. I could not believe it. I'm like, and he said be on a contender. I'm like, that's not a contender. That's nothing, man.
That's what exactly. I was like, okay, if he doesn't come enough, say if he went to Buffalo, I wouldn't be mad about. I'd be mad, but I wouldn't be like, okay, he's trying to go get a ring. Okay. But I feel like Atlanta's not the place for him. And then I go Marcus Stroud. Yeah. Which is again, same thing with Henderson. Like you said, I mean, those 2 guys were I do find it funny though that I remember Stroud went to the Raiders too, then MGG goes to the Raiders later. And then my last one for my D-line, he was great at pass rushing. His run defense is still an issue, and that's Ngakoue. I feel like he kind of helped build the pass rushing. I mean, him and Calais were Jacksonville basically, or like the main parts of it. I feel like the effect he had. I mean, and again, that's another guy we may or may not bring back this year, but I feel like he had a drastic effect on how things were going. He froze on me. But all right, so next, I'm gonna start with our linebacker group, and hopefully, just Jackson can join us because I feel like it looks like he froze on us. But so with my linebackers, all time, I go Daryl Smith is number one. I mean, Daryl Smith's like our lead tackle ever. The things he's done and accomplished is ridiculous, crazy. He was the epitome of Jags linebackers for years. He was the hierarchy. Everyone else is kind of just like compared to him. Then secondly, I go pause. So like I'll go Paul Plotniski. I always butcher his last name. But he was our lead tackler for almost every year he was here. I mean, he made a dynamic duo with somebody else who's on this list in a minute I'll go to. But like even though he wasn't the greatest in coverage, he always seemed to be like able to make the play at the right time. He wasn't the fastest guy, but he's able to get the interceptions. He has that 50-yard return against Denver that a lot of people remember. That really helped. And then, so I feel like a lot of people don't remember how he is, but that's put him 2. Put Mike Peterson at 3. Again, another lead back, running backer. I mean, he had some of the more moments. Him and Daryl Smith being the linebackers for a few years there. It was so. Oh, and then I go my last 2. I go Telvin Smith, who I feel like gets a lot of hate for his skills, but I feel like he was our playmaking linebacker for years.
He was. Yeah, he was fantastic.
Pauls would get the tackle. Telvin's getting the interceptions. It's like, well, he was in coverage. It was like, he was fast enough that he made enough. And then my last one is Kevin Hardy.
Okay. Nice.
I feel like he was like our first big linebacker. Like also Pro Bowler. I know a lot of people put Miles Jack here. I mean, because Miles Jack wasn't down. He never will be down.
I know. Ever.
But I feel like Miles Jack also kind of fell off a cliff once Telvin and Paws left. I feel like he couldn't pick up the next line of it. So
yeah, I wasn't down when they got rid of Paws and put Jack as the lead, middle linebacker. He really could not handle it. He just couldn't do it. He wasn't. I don't know.
It took him a while to realize that too.
Yeah.
Because what was it? Because it was like halfway through the season when they put him back. When they finally put Paws back.
Yep. Too late.
Yeah, exactly. Because I feel him
and who'd you have number 1? I cut out.
My number 1 is Daryl Smith.
Okay, perfect. So I've got it kind of flipped. I've got Paul Plotniski as.
I think we lost him again.
I'm sorry. Is it me cutting out?
Yeah. You're good.
All right, then I got Daryl Smith as number 2. Then Mike Peterson, like you said, he's a playmaking machine for us. Kevin Hardy was just a freak. I mean, he was like the thumper guy. Like you didn't want to get hit by him. And then number 5, I actually got because I like to throw in some new Jaguars in there. I got Alakwan in there as well because he led the league last 2 seasons. I know this last season on the Jags he led the league. Last year, he led the league on Atlanta. So I think he's going to continue to do that. I think that was a great investment by us to kind of solidify that linebacking core. Because if you remember, before this, we really did not have a linebacking core. We had not much. So
yeah, it was Miles and what was that? Schubert
and someone else that was kind of like a 5th, 6th rounder that just kind of wasn't it. So we brought him in, and ever since we've done that, I think that's a good move by our part. So similar. I do love Telvin Smith. I don't want to cut him out of that. Again, some off-field issues, that were
which I will say, at least he retired before his off-field stuff came out.
For sure. But if you remember, every month he would post something like, I want to get back into it. Like he wanted to get back. And I don't know, I'm a pretty skinny guy, and Telvin Smith would be spotted out on the town. And I mean, the guy used to be jacked linebacker NFL. So it's like, well, if you see him nowadays, something's up. Like he just doesn't look right. Like he's like, you know, looks as skinny as me. He just doesn't something's not going on right there. So to me, it just kind of put a sour taste in my mouth with him. But for the other guys, I think we're pretty close to all the same on that end. So I like.
So you said you broke up slightly. So you said Pause is your number one.
Pause is my number one, and then Daryl Smith. I think you had Daryl Smith number one and Pause number two, right? Yeah. So I just have those flipped. Again with Daryl Smith, fantastic player. You know, he played 10 years with us. Again, another second rounder that we drafted. That's fantastic. So I can't say it enough how many times we hit it out the park with the second rounders. Hopefully these last few first rounders are going to, you know, start turning that way as well. So later on, 10 years from now, we're talking about them as being the top 5 in Jags history. But I like the linebacker core. I think we've always had a pretty solid linebacking group, you know, over the years. It's not been a low point in Jaguar history for me.
Yeah, like I feel like that's probably the one position. There's always someone, maybe not Pro Bowl level, but always like something decent enough, not like a big liability.
Yeah, definitely. It's the same thing like you said with Kevin Hardy. You know, he was one of our like first All Pro Bowlers, so that, you know, he's pretty solid too. You know, maybe he jumps up above Mike Peterson or maybe even Puz Leslie there because he did put in the work. And like I said, you go watch film on him, and he could destroy people when he hit them. So.
Yeah, all right. So I think we just feel like we just have the next group would be our DBs.
DBs, yep.
So so with mine, I had a little bit different. So I had my number one DB. A lot of people, which was Rasheed Mathis. I put him over everybody. Feel like when you factor in playmaking, especially in the playoffs, when we got to the playoffs with him, he showed up a lot better than some of these other ones who are going to come behind him. Next, I go Donovan Darius. I mean, I feel like he was probably arguably our greatest safety that we've had. Yeah, I feel like. I mean, and then just the guy just made plays all the time. And then I go Jalen Ramsey. He wasn't here long, but I feel like he made enough of it, and he brought, like, with the swag of Jacksonville, I feel like he helped build a lot of that, and then we still have some of it left, like with Rashad Jenkins and his Jay Villains and all that. So I'm like, we still got that whole mentality with it, so I feel like that helps us a lot. Fourth, I'm going. A lot of people don't. This is going back a minute, but we got Aaron Beasley.
Aaron Beasley, yeah, that's back there.
I was like, it's back there a minute. I feel like he was one of our elite, or not. I'm not gonna say elite, but he was like one of our better corners early. I mean, I feel like everyone else above this definitely got him past and had more than like 1 year. So my last one, I have it's a tie right now between Rashad Jenkins, just especially because after what he did last year, I feel like he's going up there, and then AJ Boye.
That's funny. I was just thinking about Boye for sure.
I feel like I was like AJ. I feel like it really only had that 1 year with us. So like of the elite cornerness with him and Jalen. So that's why I have them tied, because like Rashad Jenkins has only had that one really good playmaking year like last year versus and that. So I'm like right now they're both tied for fifth. It just split second, fourth, but who's actual fifth?
Yeah, I like that top five. I feel like in this, you know, as great as our linebackers were, our DBs we haven't had a ton of potential there. You're not going to like this, but my number one is actually Jalen Ramsey, and I am. There can't be a guy that hates him more than me. I'm telling you, I got rid of all the jerseys, everything. I just didn't like.
I still got mine, but it's just like
the way he left. I'm also a Gator fan, so there's a lot.
Same. I'm still. So it's like
a lot of things going wrong for him, but what he did on the field was amazing. I mean, you could not throw to his side, and if you did, he made you pay for it every single time. So for me, although he only had the 2.5 seasons, if you call it that, or 3 and a quarter, he had 2 All-Pro selections. You know, he had plenty of. He didn't have as many interceptions as you'd like. He averaged like 3. A season, but the reason why is because people just did not throw to his side.
Exactly,
like, dangerous. Like pass defense, he averaged like something insane, like 15, a season, 55 tackles for a cornerback, is pretty solid. So to me, he was that elite shut down cornerback that people talk about. And we haven't had that. We're getting there. Jenkins is getting there. We're getting there with some of these guys.
Campbell's getting there. Campbell's really close.
Campbell's a great one. Campbell is a great one. He is actual, he is becoming a shutdown corner, and especially in a time where the NFL throws more than ever right now. So to be a shutdown corner in the NFL now is even harder to do, I think. And Ramsey's not that far along. He's only to go away, and he's still doing his thing. Next, I have Rasheem Mathis as well. I think he was the playmaker. He has the most touchdowns, tied with Telvin Smith. Defensive touchdowns. So whenever you needed a play, he was able to do it. And then Donovan Darius, Double D. I mean, what the guy does, again, still to this day, years and years later in the communities. He lives in Jacksonville, but the football camps he puts on, the community projects that he does, he's just a great guy. So I think as a Jaguar top 5 goes, I got to throw him in there at number 3. I have Jenkins at number 4 and Bouye at number 5. Again, that season, if you remember AJ, he was a stud for Dallas. We brought him over from Dallas. But what I loved most about him is the guy would hit you so hard. I mean, he would.
Crush
people. I mean, it was. I always say "booyah." Obviously, that would play on his name. It was perfect for it. But that season, like you said, opposite Jalen Ramsey, it was dangerous. So they had to throw it a million times to Bouye's side because they didn't want to throw it to Ramsey.
And then
amazing, So
and then they were throwing it. I remember with Short with Telvin, and Telvin wasn't taking him back.
Yeah, it was. The defense was dangerous, man. It goes down as one of the all-time greatest. But to me, those are good 5. Yeah, I know it hurts, but we'll be back, man. This is the year. We'll be back.
I mean, if you think about it, think about that team. Almost everybody. I think there was one starter that didn't score on the defense.
Probably,
it was crazy. I mean, because Dante scored, Calais scored.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's. Oh no, we did. Oh, whoops, we forgot about the O-line group. So we can't forget about the big guys. It's going on my notes. I was like, wait, we forgot about the big, more important guys, man.
I got you, son.
We don't want them coming after us, but So I mean, again, I feel like just going real quick with it. So I feel like our O-line would be number 1, Tony Baselli.
Yeah, can't
and then I put Brad Meester as 2.
Same.
Then I have Linder, Ron Searcy, and then Unje is my top 5.
Okay. I like it. I like that Linder's in there. The guy's been consistent. I've got Tony Baselli, Brad Meester. I've got Big Leon Searcy up in the house, and then Vince Manawai. He, he's passed away.
Oh yeah.
And then I do like that Linder pick. I'll slide him in there at number 5. We've had some ups and downs in the offensive line department, but I think we've fared as a team across the board over the years, a pretty decent O-line. This year, I think is going to be our best one yet, personally.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens when they move some parts around, but I really think we're a really good offensive line this year. So we'll see if they.
I mean, there really won't be a huge weak link this year. I feel like even if we slide people over and everything due to like suspension and everything, I feel like it's going to be. And with Trevor's release, I feel it's going to help a lot too. So it's going to look a lot better than they may be.
Oh yeah. It's going to be dangerous for sure.
And then, all right, then I guess our last position would just be who's your top 2 kickers?
I mean, I've only got one, and it's Josh.
You only got Scobie. You don't got Label-Matic behind him.
Maybe. Scobie's my number 1.
Scobie is number 1. Scobie is the same man. Like
the things he's done over the years. Hey, if you want to if you're doing top 5, I could throw Lambo up in there too. He did some things over that little run there for us. Even last year, I mean, shoot.
Yeah, I mean, we owe him he needs to be there for he helped us get rid of the coach who shall not be named, who did not exist because Trevor did not have last year was Trevor's rookie year. we don't talk about the former head coach of a university that's about 3 hours south of Jacksonville. That coach never coached for Jacksonville. Never happened.
Yeah. Urban Meyer.
Kick. Thank you,
That's
Lambo,
right.
for saying he kicked you, so we can
That's
get
right.
him.
That's right. That was a catalyst for it all to get rid of him. So,
all right. So, I think I feel like that was a good show for us. Make sure to check out all of our other stuff. I really enjoyed having this conversation with you. I feel like this was good. I feel like we each had some good rankings. I feel like most of it's kind of the same, similar. So I feel like there wasn't any major, like, oh, you have him in your top thing or anything, at least on my end. But did you have anybody that you felt like, I was like, oh, you can't believe you put him?
No, I think, like we said, it comes down to we're a young team. So we didn't have a huge player pool, whereas some of these teams would have, our guys might not even make, like you said, top 25 on some of them. But for us, I think it's pretty consistent across the board. I can't wait to see what the Jaguars in this year coming are going to be able to do for the future for us.
Yeah, no doubt. So I'm gonna sign out. I always sign off with a Duuuval, so let's get it with it.
All right.
Duuuval!
Subtitle Tribe, we appreciate you watching the show. If you want to catch up on all of our college football content, make sure you subscribe to the CFB Nation by clicking their link below. Make sure you subscribe to the Toilets Titles Podcast Network by clicking our link below. And make sure to catch our other content by watching these videos to the side.